Hey everybody! I can only do a screencast for 15 minutes, so that's why I thought I better divide this up into two separate lectures. So anyway, here we are again, and I want to talk about now the Shakespearean sonnet. We think about William Shakespeare in conjunction with plays, obviously, but he wrote quite a few poems, and some consider him to be an even greater poet than a playwright. So I think that's interesting. I love his sonnets. They're some of my favorites. So here we go. Here's a good one, Sonnet 29. I'm going to read it and I'm going to talk through this. Okay, here we go. When, in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least, yet in these thoughts myself almost despising. Haply, meaning haply I think on you, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For your sweet love remembered, such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. So this is a beautiful sonnet expressing the speaker's feelings for a significant other. So let's take a look at what's going on with rhyme scheme. Again, that's your very first thing. So when you encounter a poem and you count the lines, all sonnets have 14 lines, right? So you see that it's 14 lines, then you ask yourself, what's the rhyme scheme? That's your very next point. You've got to look at the rhyme scheme, like I said before. And let's review. The Italian sonnet is going to have A, B, B, A. And then that's going to be repeated in the next 4 lines. And like I told you, you're going to have some combination, it can vary, it doesn't matter, of C, D, and E in the sestet. All right. Now we've got a different rhyme scheme here. So let's take a look at this one. Okay. Eyes, that's A. State is B. Cries, rhymes with eyes, that's A. Fate, state. So where the Italian sonnet was A, B, B, A, the Shakespearean sonnet is A, B, A, B. All right? So I hope everybody sees that. So you've just got to know that going into this exam, okay? So again, the Italian is A, B, B, A, and the Shakespearean is A, B, A, B. Now let's look at what happens from there because it keeps going. A, B, then hope, that's C. Possessed, D. Scope, rhymes with hope, so that's C. Least, possessed, that's kind of a little slant rhyme there, so it's not perfect, but it's supposed to be looked at as being close enough. So again, let's go back to the beginning. We have A, B, C, D, and then we have E, F, and then that final couplet, G. So they are the same, brings and kings. So again, I'm going to repeat that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All right? So that is the rhyme scheme. But the key really is just knowing the first 4, okay? Because that lets you know, oh, gee, this is an English sonnet. Okay, so that means now I have to take what I know about the form, the structure of an English sonnet, and I have to use that to unlock the meaning of this poem, all right? So that means, now they talked about this last week on the AP Central lesson, but here we go. So, I told you with the Italian sonnet, the first 8 lines are an octave followed by a sestet. All right, this is very different. We have 4 what are called quatrains. Okay, they're quatrains. Some of you, I guess with French, quatre for 4. So Q-U-A, quatrain. Everybody knows how to spell train. All right, so a quatrain. So that means 4 lines. That is a unit, okay? So that means the first 4 lines here are considered a unit. Then you have the next quatrain, which is lines 5 through 8. Then we have the third quatrain, okay, which is the next 4 lines. And then we have that couplet at the end, lines 13 and 14. Now, so what that is telling us is that we need to look at each of these quatrains as a unit of meaning. There's something going on in each of these. And like I was talking in class one day recently, they're all related in some way, right? Because they're part of the same poem. But our first task is to figure out, now that we know we're looking at quatrains, so what's going on in these first 4 lines? All right, so let's try to break that down. All right, and I'm going to talk through this. So here's the speaker musing. When, in other words, at times, when, in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes. So when I feel disgraced, when I feel like, and look what's in the next line, I all alone beweep my outcast state. So at times when I feel low and blue and I feel like an outsider, I'm an outcast, I'm on the outside looking in, and there's not a human alive who doesn't know what that feels like. So that's what the speaker is saying. At those times when I feel disgraced in the eyes of men, and I beweep my outcast state, and continuing that thought, and when I trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries. Well, heaven is deaf. What does that mean? It means heaven, he feels like heaven is not answering his prayers. So heaven surely is deaf, because if heaven weren't deaf, his prayers would be answered. He might think, well, maybe heaven doesn't want to hear my prayers, doesn't want to answer my prayers. So that, builds that sense of being an outcast. With my bootless cries, again, I hear nothing in response to my bootless cries. They're ineffective. They're not going anywhere. And look upon myself and curse my fate. So basically, the first 4 lines, hey, when times are really, really horrible, and I feel that I'm at my worst, and I am kicked and low, and things are just horrible in my life. So we all know what that means. Then we go to the next quatrain. So at those times, what does the speaker do? Well, wishing me, when I wish myself to be like one who is more rich in hope. That means a person who has more hope than I do. So this quatrain is about comparisons. The speaker is comparing himself to others that he feels have it better than he does. Okay, featured like him with friends. Like that guy over there, he has friends. I don't feel like I have friends, but that guy over there, he's with friends possessed. Okay, look at the next line, desiring this man's art, meaning this particular man's art. Okay, and that man's scope. What is scope? Well, scope is influence. This person wields a lot of influence. So, on the one hand, he wishes he had this man's art, meaning talent. I wish I had that man's influence. And then the last line of that quatrain, with what I most enjoy, contented least. And I think that's true of a lot of humans. I think it's part of the human condition that sometimes, we want what we can't have, right? And that's what he's saying. So he looks around him and he just thinks, oh, these other people all have it so much better than I do, right? All right, so then we go on. Now, I want to talk about something before I get to this next part. As I said, the Italian sonnet, I hope you put a star next to this, the one we were talking about before. The Italian sonnet has the turn. It's called a volta. I don't think I told you that before. It's a volta, V-O-L-T-A, a volta. It's a turn and a major shift of sorts. In the Italian sonnet, it's always at line 9, always, always, always. Now, the Shakespearean sonnet can vary. In this particular sonnet, it's here at yet. So it's in line 9, as in the Italian sonnet. But so often, they made the point last week in the lesson that the turn often occurs in the Shakespearean sonnet here before the couplet. And that's true. So often it is between line 12 and 13, or at the beginning of line 13. Okay, so usually it is there, but in this particular one, it occurs here at line 9. Okay, but again, with the Italian sonnet, it's always line 9. So here we go. Yet, in these thoughts, myself almost despising, happily I think on you. And then my state, meaning my attitude, right? My attitude, and then look at this beautiful simile. Like the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, so like the little bird that chirps in the morning, right? His attitude sings hymns at heaven's gate. So that's a major attitude shift, isn't it? You know, again, yet in these thoughts myself, almost despising, happily I think on you. And what happens when he thinks on this beloved, when he thinks on this significant other? Then the state, really changes quite intensely. And now the speaker wants to sing hymns at heaven's gate. All right, and then we come to the last two lines, which really kind of accentuates the message, I think, overall. For your sweet love remembered. When I remember your sweet love, remember, sometimes you got to switch the words around a little, the syntax. For when I remember your sweet love, it brings me such wealth. I feel so rich that then I scorn to change my state with kings. I wouldn't change my place for anything. I'm so lucky to have you in my life, and I would just not ever change my state, even with a king, because my life is so great because you're in it. So again, isn't that a beautiful sonnet? I think that a lot of the Shakespearean sonnets can actually be Valentine's Day cards because it's really quite lovely. Again, for your sweet love remembered, such wealth brings that then I scorn to change my state with kings. So it's beautiful, just beautiful. So that is, my friends, the Shakespearean sonnet. And again, the key is looking at the rhyme scheme. And if it's Italian, you're going to do the octave and the sestet. Make sure you take notice of the volta or the turn, which should be contrast. And then with this Shakespearean one, you have the 3 quatrains and the final couplet. And as I said, your turn can be at line 9, but often it is, in fact, at line 13. Okay? So I'm going to give you guys some practice with some more. And this week, I am checking out the lessons on AP Central. And we've got spring break next week, so I will have time to post a couple of the lessons that I think are particularly good. I'll probably talk with Mr. Henry and Miss Minnick. We have been in close contact and decided that we didn't want to make this dull and tedious, but and we also want to do some teaching as well. So we're going to do a mix, okay? So anyway, I hope you guys are staying safe, and I really miss you terribly. And I think about you guys all the time. So take care and enjoy your novel. I hope you are enjoying that. And I'll be talking to you soon. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.